So I'm going to start with a short question. Who is Ian Hamm?
That's a really good question, and it's one I still ask myself even now. I'm sure there's many people ask, who is Ian Hamm? Shortly, I guess a short version of that is that I'm a Yorta Yorta man. So my country is in the north of Victoria, southern New South Wales, predominantly around the Shepparton, Echuca, Yarrawonga region and the corresponding kind of region to New South Wales, the other side of the Murray River. So first and foremost, it's important I acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands that I'm on today, and that's the Bunurong people here in Melbourne, and I pay my respects to their elders past and present. I'm now a non-executive director for a living, and I do a few little other things besides. And I've had a journey of in the public service for well over 30 years, 32 years. And now I'm doing something which I really want to do, which is about where is Aboriginal Australia going from here? What does our future hold? And rather than looking at what's wrong with this, let's look at what's right with this and how do we build on that?
That's a great introduction, and often these kind of conversations dive straight into, right, what's the problem and how are you personally going to solve it? So I want to do something a bit different here, which is I want to start at the end and then kind of and then have some conversations that come out of that. And I'm going to steal a question from you, which is a question you asked of an audience recently. And it's the question you encouraged them to ask themselves, which is, what's the best thing about being Aboriginal?
And that's actually a really interesting question because not many people ask it. Too often we frame Aboriginal people and Aboriginal communities through the lens of disadvantage and what is wrong with things in the Aboriginal community and so forth. But the really important question is, what's right about being Aboriginal? What's good about being Aboriginal? Or as I put it in one meeting, what's good about being a black fella? There's actually a lot that's good about being Aboriginal that I count my blessings about being Aboriginal. Number one, you're never alone. You have this sense of community. You belong somewhere. That's actually really important in a time where loneliness is becoming endemic almost within our society, not just in the broad Australian community. Fundamental thing about the Aboriginal community is we first and foremost think of ourselves as an interconnected community. That sense of belonging, that sense of never being alone, that sense of having a mob that you belong to, whether it's your family, your extended family, your clan, your tribal community, your place-based community. So I'm Yorta Yorta, my country's up in the north of Victoria, but I'm part of the Melbourne community. That's a really wonderful thing that I think the Aboriginal community does better than anyone else. I also think that that sense of belonging to place more than anything else, we're the only ones who for thousands of years, who have an embedded footprint that they can literally trace back through the generations to where we virtually do become part of the environment, do become part of the earth and the waters and the winds and the skies. That's something which is really wonderful about being Aboriginal. I think that there's lots and lots of things. That thing about, I hate using the term resilience because I think often in Australia we latch onto a term, we just cook it to death. Resilience is one. But we are an incredibly robust people who roll with the punches and get up and then say, what's next? Where do we go from here? And it's not about us as individuals. We don't think of ourselves as a collection of individuals. We think of ourselves as one community or one society. And it's about how all of us go forward, how we leave no one behind. That's the really good stuff about being Aboriginal that I wouldn't swap for all the tea in China, as they say.